We have the representatives of local administrations, and we have the political and technical responsible officials, politically and technically responsible officials amongst us. So I'm sure that they will be making such great presentations. As you can understand from how I look, I have worked a lot in this particular sphere. I'm kindly asking the panelists to do the following for me. Actually, what we're interested in today is that, I don't know how you put it, it can be interpreted as intermunicipal or intercity relations. So I'm kindly asking you to elaborate on the fundamental challenges that you've come across with. So it is going to show us the way ahead of us. So I'm kindly also asking you to make emphasis on the following. So for those challenges, what kind of solutions have you generated? Or how do you think we can generate those solutions together? So I think these are the important dimensions of this session. I know that I'm sure that you are quite prepared. I'm not intervening into your job, but I'm kindly asking you to keep these two things in mind so that we would have a more down-to-earth approach. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And now I would like to invite the first speaker to the floor. Who do you think we should start with? Okay. Now, Hilmar Tevrüz von Lojewski. Sorry for my pronunciation. Is a very valuable member of the Municipal Council, and he has a very important position at the German Municipal Union. And they are already introduced by their CVs in our program, so I don't want to take much of your time. And now you have the floor, sir. Please. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Maruf. You can take off your headphones, which would be more comfortable for you. So I would like to continue in English, if you allow me, because I'm one of those expats living in Germany. When I was a student, I learned Turkish between 1985 to 1986. As you might appreciate, one might forget speaking Turkish.
I'm representing the Association of Cities in Germany, which consists of 200 direct member cities. And well, for us in such kind of association, it is always extremely interesting to compare the setting of such kind of institutions. As I used to work also internationally quite a bit in the beginning of the 90s, I've been for the German Development Corporation in Nepal, and we founded a Nepali Cities Association, which still exists today. I used to work in Syria between 2007 and 10, and we tried to set a seed, at least, for a Syrian Cities Association. You cannot imagine this from today's perspective. But there were, even in hard times, better times in a country like Syria. We tried to set a seed. And what we have in mind as, well, Germans who grew up within a federal system after Second World War, who grew up within a system of the separation of powers, is always to transfer at least this experience elsewhere. So the comparison of cities administrations, of cities associations is of utmost interest for us. This is why I'm here. This is why I like to join this panel very much, to briefly characterize the German Association of Cities. We regard ourselves as the independent voice of German cities towards the federal government. And at the state level, some of you might know, Germany is organized in 16 states, out of which 3 are cities, Berlin, Hamburg, and Bremen. The other 3 are, well, like big governorates in Turkey. but acting in terms of finances, education, economy, independently from the federal government. Also at this level, we have cities administration as the Marmara Cities Association exists in Turkey as a regional association. We regard ourselves, as I said, as independent voices, as a community of solidarity, which sounds a little bit emphatic, but it is a matter of fact, that the cities stay pretty much in solidarity to each other. Why is this so? We have rich cities, we have poor cities, and we currently discuss in Germany, and you asked for challenges, to reduce or even to equalize the debts of the poor cities through, well, one could even say donations by the federal government and the state governments in order to provide for equal conditions amongst the cities. The cities, the poorer cities in Germany, carry a debt burden of about 50 billion euro, and we discuss that federal government overtakes half of it. As a matter of fact, there are only about 150 cities which might profit from this, and all the other 3,000 something cities and communities need to show a certain solidarity if these poorer cities were exempted from their debts. So it is a kind of lived community of solidarity. We represent the idea of local self-governance. We have an advantage in Germany because this self-governance is guaranteed by the Constitution. We only have one section in one article, 28, paragraph 2 in the German Constitution, which says simply the cities govern themselves. But the association as such is not mentioned neither in the Constitution nor in any law. The Association of Cities is a totally informal body. We are not even a listed association. We could, from a critical angle, be seen as an NGO, as a non-listed NGO, the German Association of Cities, even though it exists since 1905 officially. And we do not appear in every legal constituency, in any legal setting. We only exist, and I'll come to that later, in the working order of the German cabinet. We know, what are we doing? We negotiate laws, policies, programs, subsidies at national and state level. We interconnect the mayors. We are a network, and we initiate activities. In terms of challenges, we do this with a strong bias on sustainable development, sustainable financial, economic, environmental, social development. We do this also in terms of digitization, how to overcome the fact that Germany is lacking heavily behind administrative digitization. Coming to Turkey, once a year, I see the progress in digitization. When I applied for my Nüfuskarte in the General Consulate in Berlin, it was fully digitized. Whereas when you do this in a German administration, the only digital approach is that you can book your rendezvous online. But all the other processes are not fully digitized. So we are lacking behind. These are maybe the challenges. A brief look into the history, because this doesn't come from one day to the other. At the end of the 19th century, the German Reich, we still had a Kaiser and were rather centrally organized. The parliament of the German Reich promulgated a lot of laws which, well, gave a certain implementation pressure on the cities without providing for the money. And this is where the principle of connexity, as we call it in German, this is not an English word, so it's not translatable. It simply says the one who orders pays. The one who orders a service by law has to pay for the service. As usually the federal government, or in that time, the congregation of elected at the national level, the Reichstag, promulgated these laws and did not provide for the money to implement these laws, the cities joined hands and founded the German Association. It was suspended between 1933 and 45 for obvious reasons. The Nazi regime was highly centralized. All self-governance structures were abolished. We today have in Germany 4,300 cities, 52 million urban inhabitants, one could say, and all the larger cities are member of the German Association. What is important, we are politically totally independent. Whenever you have experienced quarrels in your city parliaments between the different fractions, we experience absolutely the same. A lot of quarrel, coalitions, counter-coalitions, shifting coalitions, attempts to get rid of a mayor, attempts to install a new mayor, all the same. But when the mayors meet amongst each other, as I said before, it's a community of solidarity. And even though all belong to different parties, it is a party politically independent and association only accountable and responsible to its members. What we have as a principle of governance in Germany is an interesting feature, and at this early hour of the morning I ask you to not to spell, but to pronounce the term Gegenstromprinzip. It's a wonderful German word. It's a counter-stream principle, as you can see in the graph, top-down, bottom-up. This is a principle of governance. That means we act as representatives of the association with the federal government representatives at eye level. Not only because we know, well, we think we know more than they do because they are only responsible for a certain branch, and we know, well, all sectors which the cities have to tackle. But we also work at eyesight between a mayor and a minister at central level due to remuneration. It's about the same remuneration. It's not a disadvantage to work at the local level. It's just the opposite. There are ministers who become mayors and mayors who become ministers. So it's a vice versa principle. What is important to keep in mind is it's not only top-down, it's a lot of bottom-up pattern of governance in Germany, which leads, well, to a different way of consensus. This is the article I mentioned, self-government in the German cities, for the German cities. That's the only article in a pretty long constitution which tackles this matter. Well, apart from government and governance, we believe a lot has to do with the identification with the cities, within the cities, of the elected people, of the people with their city. So, loving your own city is something which we put very much forward. And as we have famous cities as Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, Cologne, which almost everyone knows, we have at the same, at the other side of the medal, pretty suffering cities like Gelsenkirchen with a jobless rate still today of more than 10%. Salzgitter, which I recently visited, Schwedt, in East Germany, we have cities who suffer structural change. Nevertheless, we realize that there is a strong identification of the citizens with their city, and we believe that the prime target of urban governance is to maintain this identification, this engagement for the cities. And we need to find different paths than only incorporating the elected members of city parliaments to government and governance, but rather expand governance patterns towards the general public. Means we have to enter participatory patterns which we have not used in the past. We need to, at the same time, strengthen representative democracy, because we do not want the elected members of parliament delegate their power to public participatory procedures, and need to somehow maintain the city as a holistic one. This is in view of the scattered pattern of political parties in Germany at the moment, not very easy. We have a strong right-wing movement which came up during the economic crisis in Europe in 2007 and continued due to the influx of refugees and migrants after 2015 considerably. We share this with a lot of other EU member states. Until today, we do not have city parliaments which exceed 20% members of the right-wing parties. Nevertheless, it is a challenge to maintain the unity of the cities, to maintain the openness of the cities, to maintain the the variety and multiplicity of the cities, because those cities which have the lowest proportion of refugees, immigrants, and non-German passport holders have the highest proportion of right-wing parties. So this is something where love your city might not be sufficient. This is a matter of delivery of services, of showing to cope with accommodation, housing, and social service challenges, which is a day-to-day, so to say, black bread of administrative work in German cities. All in all, I hope I have given you a very brief, compressed overview on what the challenges of the German cities are, how we organize ourselves, and that we, as the German Association of Cities, even though we consist only of about 100 people, out of which 50 are academicians, try to cope with these challenges, support our cities, and even try to maintain our international context to learn from others and to spread the news about connexity, who orders pays the bill, and about subsidiarity, and this is nothing new to you, that the political power should be allocated where the action takes place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my dear friend Hilmar. Our friend Hilmar really enlightened us with his presentation, and what I liked the most in his presentation was the love your city part. And of course, this needs to be bilateral. I mean, the city needs to love us as well, because unrequited love doesn't really bring much to you. And I would also like to thank our friend Hilmar, because although he has Turkish blood, he has adopted that German culture, and he was right on time with his presentation. I hope our other friends take that as an example. And let's pass the floor to
Lize van der Stoel. Well, as you invited us to stick to the time, I'm already in red, so it's interesting. I first of all like to congratulate Maruf on their presentation of this first conference. It's an immense job to get it done, invite the people, get them all what they ask for, and still being satisfied being around. And if I ask around people, how do you like the conference, then they all say that it comes up to their expectations. So that's quite a job done. And before we go, they seldom get the reward, but also the translators that sit upstairs and nobody sees them, like people in the organization that are behind the screens. I'd like to thank them for their service. The Dutch Association has many resemblances with the German, so let me start with a difference. We're non-political, but from the old days, the chair of the organization is a member of the Liberal Party, and the director of the organization is a member of the Labour Party.
It's always so?
It's been so for years, and that's from the past, as the Christian Democrats had the chair of the highest advisory body in the Netherlands. I wonder when it's going to change, because the days when I was young and worked in Parliament, the Christian Democrats had about 55 seats, by now 13. Labour had some about 50, and now 9. So I don't know how long these agreements will last, but formally it's non-political. It doesn't give a political advice, and that's logical. There's a Dutch saying, if you have two Dutchies meet, then they're having a discussion. If you have 3 Dutchies that have a meeting, then they're talking about a new political party. So if you want to survive as an organization, as the Dutch Association, then you can't be political, because nobody will accept it. 355 municipalities are member. We have groups within these municipalities. You've got the big 5, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Utrecht, The Hague, and Eindhoven, and they work as a group together. You get then the 40 biggest that work together as a group, because they didn't felt represented, because those big 5 took all the attention of the government. And then you have the group of the 10 biggest of the smallest. I didn't organize it and think of it, but that's how it works in reality, and it still works as a unit. Every year there's a conference where the members, so the municipalities, decide on the policy, and the organization advocates, lobbies with the national government and in the EU. But it's changing from an advocacy lobby organization into a far more networking organization. And that's to broaden their own view on subjects. So they work together with private companies, provinces, water boards, and what's introduced recently, that's 4 years ago, with the former government, there's an agreement between all the layers of government. So national, provincial, water board, municipality, that they work together on certain issues, and they have tasks that they agreed on, so they have to realize that in 4 years' time, as is the term of government. It facilitates its members by conference, advice, training, and all the points of view are being prepared by committees, and the committees consist of aldermen and mayors, and that's a real fight every 4 years after the local elections, who is going to be on the committee. I was about to say I never survived, but I'm a member of the international committee, as in my past I was very much involved with Development Corporation international training. Then the changes are from the lobbying into networking. It's evolving from a platform to becoming that network organization, operating amidst all the groups, organization in society, and moving away from one-way service delivered to the members in getting organized and information from others as well. That is being represented in the advice to the municipalities. And this change will take quite a few years, so it's in progress. One of the big issues at the moment is the climate change, of course. We had round tables on different issues, electricity and no longer use gas. And I have to explain that why that is an issue in the Netherlands. We have gas in our own country north, but we found out that the soil went down because the gas was taken out. And that leaves problems with the people that live there. Their houses are going down. And it took political time to accept that we can't exploit it any longer and get the money. The Netherlands have been rebuilt after the Second World War by the money of the gas. Otherwise, we couldn't have done that so quickly. So that's something you have to think about. Oh, do we stop with that? And how do we replace them? So that's a big issue on the government level, but also on the individual level. Yeah, but I cook on gas, I warm my house on gas, then what? So that's one of the big issues on the climate table, how we're gonna change that, the transition, getting away from gas. And working with the round tables, which is a very popular issue in the Netherlands, you have the fights around those tables, but people find each other. They all realize private business, NGOs, governments in all the varieties, we have to work together, otherwise we can't survive. And the results of the climate table, the round tables worked in Germany, I understood for some part as well. And the NGO, the association, the Dutch association, plays a big role. You can't have 355 municipalities, and then it's good to have the one organization. The partnerships are very important on healthcare, on decentralization, fiscal decentralization, and work again together with all sorts of counterparts. And then there's the international part of capacity building. Usually it is on request. And that's very important to stress. We Dutch are never looking for an opinion. We always have an opinion. And we always know how to deal with an issue. That's what we say. But if you want to cooperate abroad, then first state clearly what you expect from us. Otherwise, we fly in, do the job, and we're gone. Now, if you want to cooperate, then the one has to formulate the issue where you want to be supported upon, and it's to us to reply to that question and not do it our own way. That's important for the ones that want to cooperate. The association is a special interest group for the government. Before a government is being formed, the association, like that one of the provinces, and a few private NGO-like institutions are being asked for advice. What do you suggest for the future? And in that sense, the association plays a very important part. And yeah, what it's worth, that we'll find out the coming years, because the association has to deal with the Ministry of Internal Affairs about a new financial agreement for the next years. So that's really a test. What I'd like to finish off with is a very interesting issue at the moment in the Netherlands, that there is an environmental code accepted by Parliament, that joins about 26, 28 laws, it's in one code, and it stresses the importance of the inhabitants of the municipalities. So it's not the municipality that decides on we're gonna go that way, or it's less housing, or more roads, less roads, whatsoever. Always been in cooperation with the inhabitants and participation. And I think that is a very, very important idea to work with. It's not always easy. I know it from practicing myself both ways, but it's still worth doing it. And it will be hard working for municipalities and civil servants to get themselves adapted to that new rule. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your valuable presentation. And this recent information you provided is very good news. I hope that will set an example for other local governments as well. And now I gave 2 passes to the left, so let me turn to the right this time. Our dear friend, Kelmend, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'll take maybe 1 minute to thank the Marmara Municipality Union for this extraordinary work. Otherwise, we at NALAS are very much aware how much it takes to do this, because we have done together with the Marmara Municipality also the Nexpo a few years ago in Sarajevo, and also in Rijeka, and it is quite, it stretches to the extreme the capacity of the organizations. But we have witnessed these days that it pays off to have such an exchange, to have such presentations. It was really remarkable. I enjoyed it. So being aware that this is the last day of the conference, I decided to give a shorter version of my presentation. So I will have only a few slides. I would use the remote if I can get it. And actually, I will base my presentation in 2 hypotheses. So the first one is related to the state building. We are aware, because I come from NALAS, it connects 14 local government associations from 12 countries in Southeast Europe, and overall, being involved so many years in this development of democracy and the state buildings, we sometimes think we have failed. Maybe not totally failed, maybe, but certainly we could have done much better. And thinking about what are the main obstacles, what are the things that didn't really work, and this relates me to the main topic of good governance and the role of associations. So it is apparently this switch, especially in our members that are coming from a post-communist countries, former Yugoslavia and others, there is this shift from the system has a cost. You know, from living in a communistic system where it's all about the public good, so the individual property is totally prohibited. Then going to the other extreme, which is maybe the main problem, that we do not really have this sense. We have lost the sense of public good. So and you can see it in both sides. In the sides of citizens who are not actively participating and contributing to public life. So this is the civil society has grown a little bit, but the civic engagement is not there, the real. And in the other side, in exercising public service, there is a lack of motivation, enthusiasm, and a true custodians of the public good. So you can very rarely find the public servants that are really performing the way they should, and I think they are both related to the shift of societies, and I don't know why it's that so. I think we have seen here a lot of students, and probably that's a good research for scholars to see how this shift of systems is changing the attitudes and values of citizens. But in terms of, I'm pretty much sure that how we are going to restore this public trust and this engagement in public good. I think the answer will be at local government, and for that I'm certainly sure. And we already see the signs that a lot of mayors that are doing the job very well, they actually, in time, there is a trend that they become independent, because they connect to the citizens, and they don't need anymore the party to win the next elections. And so these are the signs that actually these public trust and state building must go bottom up. So the top-down approach until now, 20 years, has not been very effective. And the other hypothesis is that there is that the local governments, the decentralization process in general, has been suffering from a very extreme underfunded decentralization. That a lot of competences will devolve very fast, but the funds were not there, and we are monitoring this in NALAS. I prepared some slides, but I decided maybe to skip that part, but the general picture is that they are extremely underfunded. And so these underfunding of the services of local government also affects also the governance. And this is maybe the second hypothesis, that when the local governments are totally dependent on the grant transfers, earmarked grant transfers from the central government, so the accountability goes to them, to the government, to the central government, because they are totally dependent, and they are struggling on daily basis how to cover the basic needs. For instance, I know every winter there is an issue how to have enough funds to heat the schools. So heating of schools is an issue, and they need to spend a lot of energy there. And here the connection between the local elected officials and the citizens is getting diluted, because they need to they are more accountable to central government than to citizens, because they depend on these transfers. So now I will give an overview of a regional decentralization observatory that we at NALAS have just developed the methodology, and we have done the first testing measurement. It has 4 dimensions. Local autonomy is one, and it covers all decentralization, administrative, legal, and so on. The quality of public service. The other dimension is participation and accountability, and this is very much related to our topic today, and intergovernmental dialogue, and which is actually the strength of local government associations to enter into this dialogue. So I'll show you only this one slide of these the results. So these 4 dimensions are actually telling us one story. So we have a very good results in terms of overall autonomy and legal framework. So this is the yellow quadrant. With the exception, you will see in these yellow quadrant, there is also one indicator, which is the fiscal decentralization, that is much lower. But overall, it is a good picture. And also the fourth dimension, which is this the pink. My wife says I don't recognize the colors, but I think it's pink. The upper right quadrant, it also shows that the intergovernmental dialogue is good, which is true. Our local government associations are very strong. So they have been supported internationally from strong other associations, sister associations in the past 20 years. And they're doing a very good job in this intergovernmental dialogue, actually, with some few exceptions. And we witnessed this at NALAS because they are requesting from us policy relevant information on daily basis. And this is a sign that they are really doing an effective policy dialogue. So the dialogue is there, associations are strong. The overall system is not bad, so the legal framework, with the exception of fiscal, is good. But what the results are not showing good scores are actually the quality of public services. So what is this telling? That if you have a good system but the quality is not good, so one thing is that this fiscal starving of very, very low fiscal revenues are not letting the system grow. And so the public services are declining, actually. So I'm saying this lately very often, that just an example, the kindergarten when I went was in a much better shape than it is today. So there is a decline in the quality of the public service. And the other quadrant about the citizen participation, this is the green one, and responsiveness of local government. This is also a lower score, and that's what I was talking about. We are failing somehow to take advantage of decentralization. And the advantage is to mobilize citizens in solving problems and get them involved. And here also the accountability score is maybe the lowest, and that's what is showing actually about the issue of governance. The crisis we have. So in general, we lack, let's say, development of public services, the quality of public services, and the engagement of citizens. Those are the main takeaways, maybe from our RGO report. By the way, I missed maybe to mention that this is the Southeast Europe average that I showed. Another issue is the EU accession process. It is going in different speeds in different countries, which is unfortunately creating new walls, new barriers, because there is a different speed of development. And for Balkans, that's not good, because some countries are they're renewing their infrastructure, they're getting much better. The standard of living is going up, the others are stagnating. Unfortunately, also the candidate countries are stagnating. And the pre-accession support is not showing the results, and NALAS now is trying to push through the Berlin process the engagement of local governments in this pre-accession period, not to see another cycle of stagnation of 10 years of the public service, but to make maybe the communities do not feel the difference between being and not being a new member by adjusting the pre-accession instruments in that way. Another topic that we at NALAS are addressing are also these the Agenda 2030. And when we heard about this shift from MDGs to SDGs, that they are localizing, no one left behind, and so on, we are very happy that the time for local governments is coming as development actors, but it is going very slow in the Balkans again. So we are now making the first steps, only awareness raising, understanding what it means for local governments and what are the potentials. And here I must say that we've been heavily supported by the Swiss and the German government, which is maybe not a coincidence, because as we know, after World War II, Germany, that's how it developed the state bottom up, and also the Swiss, we know it's much believing in this bottom up development, and that's where we see our allies to help restore the public trust and to help bring the good governance in place. Thank you.
Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you, Kelmend.
Bize yepyeni bir dünyanın hem umutlarını hem sorunlarını çok güzel dile getirdiniz.
You talked about the hopes and challenges of a brand new world. Thank you very much. And now I'll turn to the left again. And from the Sweden Association, the International Director, Stattin. The floor is yours.
Thank you and good morning to you all. I'm Stattin from the Swedish Association of Local Governments and Regions. It's a pleasure to be here in Istanbul. It was a long time since I was here last time, but I have enjoyed already some of the city's nightlife. No, not nightlife, that was an exaggeration, but I had a very good dinner yesterday, so it was really nice. And also thank you for the invitation to this forum. We think that this is a part of our extended world. We have a cooperation with the MMU, the organizers here, and also with the UMT in Turkey we've had for many years, and also the CMU located in Adana. Well, I represent the Swedish Association, and we are there are many similarities to the Dutch and the German situation, and also here in Turkey, I think, but and yet some differences. My organization is considered to be a political organization because it is composed based on the result and local and regional level. Technically, it's not a political organization; it's a non-profit organization. But since the statutes compose the whole board of SALAR according to the results, it is also a political organization. So we have just left, we've just had our Congress, and now we have an alliance of the center conservative parties in majority, and after a period of more socialist and green parties for the moment. And yesterday, our previous president, Mrs. Mikko, was appointed to the minister for among other things, municipalities, which we believe is a very good situation for us, at least at this point. SALAR, so it is a political organization. The board of SALAR then appoints a lot of committees. We have about 10 or 12, depending on the priorities. And these committees, one is, for instance, that I'm in charge of, is the Committee on European Affairs, and there is another one on International and Democracy Affairs, which I also has a lot of things to do with. Their task is to be the voice of the members collective of the 310 members of SALAR, and everyone is a member, voluntarily a member. There are no laws saying that they have to be a member. but they all are. And the differences, I think, is in Sweden, as at least here in Turkey and in many other places, the differences between the members are quite substantial. The smallest municipalities in Sweden have about 2,500 inhabitants. Stockholm has, and the bigger cities, they might have 1 million, 2 million people. The tasks, as you understand, are the same if you live up north, and the geography can be very rural. If you take a municipality like Jokkmokk in the north, that is, has roughly 5,000 inhabitants, but they have a geographical space which is 3 times the county I come from. So you can imagine that there are differences, and they are all supposed to provide the same services. Now, but they are all members, and there is a good reason for that, because structurally in Sweden, the public authorities, such as municipalities and regions, are big employers. So collectively, our members employ roughly 25% of the labor force or the workforce in Sweden. And we have a very decentralized system in terms of the labor market, where the parties, that means the employers and the employees, are organized in unions, and the same goes for employers. So we are the negotiator, you could say, on the labor market for these 25%. And if our members weren't members of our organization, they would have to do it themselves. And trust me, it's kind of a tough job to negotiate the terms on the labor market on your own with maybe 50 strong unions. So that is one good reason. But another reason is obviously that we are an organization that provides services to our members. That could be legal services, that could be networking platforms, it could be learning platforms, because experiences and or sharing experiences and learning from that is one of the most popular things we have for our members. I lost my notes now. Sorry. So what does occupy the Swedish Association? Well, thematically, there are some challenges. The demography of our country is changing rapidly. The number of elderly people reaching very high ages is increasing quite substantially. And we have a joke, sort of, in our birthday song, in Swedish, we have always sung that he or she may live to 100 years. And the joke is now that we have to change that line now, because that is actually a fact now, that very many people reach the age of 100. Not everyone just yet, but the numbers of 80 years old, for instance, is increasing so rapidly that we have to, and the costs, the problem is that not that you are getting older, but the problem is that the costs related to the public services and the need for public services increases quite substantially. So the curve is, when you're born, you have there is a cost related to your birth, and then it goes up during schools, and then you become an adult and you start working and contributing to society, and you do that all the way until you become 65, retiring, and then the curve starts going up a little bit, and then a little bit more, but then it just rises when you come to the age of 80 and above. So that is preoccupying, and not just the need for services, but also who is supposed to provide the services, because the younger people coming from below are not nearly as many. So there is a gap between service delivery and others. I'm the only one here on minus, have you seen? I'm already...
No.
No, it's okay, yes, yeah. I'm counting backwards, yeah. Another one, obviously, that goes for everyone is sustainable financing. And yet, Sweden has we are strong believers in local self-governance and have been for a very long time. We just celebrated a few years back 150 years of self-governance. It is established in our constitution these days, but the first law was made in 1862. And when they made that law, eventually the independence in Sweden is very high in terms of you can make your own decisions, independent decisions, but if you at the same time are completely dependent on the government, the national government, for making things happen in terms of finance, the independence is sort of abolished a little bit. But in Sweden, the municipalities and regions have the right to levy income taxes. So most people only pay taxes, income taxes, to their municipality and or region, which is obviously, so roughly 80%, 75-80% of the municipal expenses are covered by income taxes.
Dangerous.
No, it's not dangerous. It's perfect, actually, because you can make things happen. Other things of interest is the quality of healthcare, integration. We've had a lot of immigration lately, and that is a challenge for many municipalities to make those people coming also become members of the society. Digitization is another one. So what do we do? The title for this seminar was Driving Force for Governance. Well, we try as an association to be a strong voice to advocate the interest of our members. And how do we do that? How do we become a strong voice? Well, first of all, there were many in Sweden. There used to be several associations. So one was to merge to become one voice. Another one was to discuss with facts. And that led to, we have a big project called Open Comparison. It's mainly a system of statistics that we collect from our members, what they do and what they don't do. And with those facts, we can go to the government and point at certain things that needs to... Oh, am I over? Okay.
This works other way around.
So what? It's now 9 minutes, or?
Yeah, it's about 12.
No more minutes.
1 more minute, okay. So wrapping up, yes, we do work with facts. It's evidence-based facts. We collect a lot of data in terms of financing. How does the financial situation develop in the municipalities? Legalities, of course, and we also provide, as I said, I think earlier, a lot of services to our members that we can do to become or to be a driving force for change and development for governance out there in the municipalities and regions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stattin. And now we heard the north of Europe, Central Europe, and a little bit about Eastern Europe. We heard about the collaboration there between local governments. And now the star behind the scenes, the Marmara Municipality Union. We will give the floor to them, to Mr. Arslan. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. I need to speak very carefully. A guy saved everyone in a flood situation, and then he died, and then he was sent to heaven because he helped people survive the flood. And then one day in heaven, everyone got bored, and they said, let's all talk about our areas of expertise so we can entertain ourselves. And then it's his turn, and an angel approaches him, and he says, if you're going to be talking about the flood disaster, then Prophet Noah is sitting right across you. So that's how I feel. I mean, I have so many professors sitting here right now. İlhan Tekeli is here. He is one of the most important names about local democracy in Turkey. So I feel like I need to be very careful as I select my words today. I hope I'll succeed in that. The Marmara the Marmara Municipality Union is where I've worked for a while. And before that, about local government unions and about the importance of local governments. I wasn't really aware of how important that is until I started working with the Marmara Municipalities Union. And when we look at the 45 years of development in local governments in Turkey, the Marmara Municipalities Union has a lot of contribution in this, and the names I pronounced also have a lot of contribution in this. Now, undoubtedly, each union is established within a certain political climate and functions within that political climate. I mean, the political climate, the conditions, the attitude of the administrators, all have an influence on the functions of a union. But also, I believe these intermediary institutions have an important impact about how that political climate can be softened a little bit. Even when the climate is very intense, I believe the Marmara Municipalities Union contributed hugely to calming that intensity. And during the 1968 movements, there were a lot of student movements in Paris at the time, and a group of students are faced with their professor. The professor says, we understand your feelings, but you shouldn't go around vandalizing. What should we do? You need to talk. What should we do? We need to talk. So he says that 3 times. So the municipality unions are a place where people and municipalities from different opinions can come together and communicate. So these unions prove that communication is very valuable. And the Marmara Municipalities Union is the first municipalities union established in 1975. And for some of the listeners, this may be important. There are different municipality unions. There are some NGOs as well, but the Marmara Municipalities Union was established as a public institution since the very beginning, and despite that, it has managed to survive. And since its inception, it has been chaired by various chairpersons who represent all types of political views in Turkey, and I believe that's an important indicator of the spirit of this union. I believe that institutions always stick with their principles of inception. I mean, there could be some movements back and forth from those principles, but in the end, an institution always pivots back to its fundamental principles. For that reason, Although membership is not compulsory, 194 of the 206 municipalities in this region are members of the Marmara Municipalities Union. So basically, 93% of the municipalities in its scope are member of it. Of course, a 14 million city and 2 million city are both members, and there are diverse expectations, so harmonizing those expectations isn't very easy, but I can easily state this as the democratic practice improves, the significance of these unions are better understood. You have probably noticed in our sessions we try to bring together mayors who adopt different political views, and that has become very important for them as well. I mean, people who don't prefer to come together at the national level can easily come together at local levels and develop solutions. So yes, there are some challenges, but overcoming these challenges, our moderator had 2 questions at the beginning, and he asked, what do you do generally and how do you overcome challenges? And everyone has some sort of approach, and my experience tells me that doing good things or doing insufficient things, it's all about the human resource you have. If you have a good team who pursue the same dream but have diversity in their thoughts, I believe there is no challenge that cannot be overcome. Now, I'm underlining diverse opinions, diverse thoughts there, because if there isn't diversity, you become lazier. And I think working together with the people who think the same is a huge waste. If you think the same, you don't need to work together. I think managing diversities creates a huge richness. Otherwise, you will just create chaos and conflict. So you need to manage those diversities to prevent chaos and conflict, obviously. But I think this is much more efficient in dealing with problems and overcoming challenges. Because sometimes people who are involved in politics separate political life from daily life very much, and then you create 2 different layers. However, political life needs to be as colorful, as vibrant as daily life. Administration needs to be like that as well. People who are happy in their personal lives would not prefer to be unhappy in their professional lives. So you need to be happy in your personal life to be able to desire happiness in your professional life, and only happy people can actually provide good for other people. I mean, I think, yes, it is a very simple mindset that I'm putting forth, but I think it really is as simple as that. People who think they are doing good things but making their team unhappy obviously are not doing good things. People can only be happy when the administrators are also happy people. I think that's the most fundamental part of it. And also, we need to focus on common grounds. That's the second thing. And we need to focus on the tasks that need to be achieved. At the Marmara Municipalities Union, for teamwork, we have a principle, and we voice this in our magazines that we publish and in our work as well. We don't want to focus on the negative. We just want to focus on the positive and increase the positive aspects. At the global level as well, when we are carrying out activities in international associations, and also locally when we are focusing on our communications with other municipalities, we only want to put emphasis on the positive aspects. And we saw that this really created a lot of benefit for us. Of course, institutional capacity is very important. If you don't have a good institutional capacity, you can't really achieve very many tasks. And when you combine all of these, you would really need to put a lot of effort into being unsuccessful. I mean, this is the recipe for success. I mean, if you really want to work as a team, and if you really don't want to make others unhappy, then the only way you can go wrong is by really putting a lot of effort into going wrong. And I think with these approaches in place, success is inevitable. Of course, this is very important. Now, we work with mayors and municipalities. And the attitude the mayors portray when they are administering their own municipality is not different from how they act within the municipalities union as well. I mean, if a mayor has an authoritarian approach in his own municipality, then he will adopt the same approach when he is interacting within unions as well. But people who focus on inclusiveness and participation, then they will look for this in their own municipalities as well as the unions. So the level of maturity portrayed by mayors and the democratic respect level of mayors also is what defines how much work we can do. And also, when the central government and local governments meet, advocacy of the central governments is a challenge we face, for example. And there are a lot of new unions established in this area. We try to work with them as well. And we really have faith in the youth. We see a lot of our friends from who were born in the 90s, and they are very open-minded, and they are truly only satisfied when they do work. They actually enjoy their life when they are able to work, and I think they are very, very important for us. So since my time is up, I saw that look that came from the side of your eyes, so I'm going to end it here. I hope it was beneficial.
Çok teşekkür ederim Cemil. Çok değerli konuşma.
Thank you very much, distinguished panelists, distinguished members of the audience. Maybe you came to be aware of the fact that maybe you've joined the other sessions other than this particular session. So I happen to be the moderator who spoke the least amongst the others. I would like to say a few words, just as much as a paragraph. Let me reiterate my appreciation for this great organization. I would like to extend my appreciation and thanks to the panelists and speakers, and I would like to thank the managers and the officials of the municipality unions of the other countries. I would like to thank them very much. They have enlightened us. Maybe you are aware, Hilmar, in the beginning, has talked about the independent voice of the German cities, and distinguished representative of the VNGs talked about the non-political aspect of it, and dear Kelmend talked about public trust kindly. Since it's a new formation, that was a different statement of the concept, and Yarkat said that we are a political organization, as very comfortably put, and Cemil, my brother, has emphasized the political environment, political climate. These were the emphasis for me. So please correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, if we would have time to do that, by the way. So I think politics is perceived to be a contagious disease in the world. That's how politics is perceived. But as a matter of fact, in good sense, I mean, making politics is something sacred. It's a kind of competition. So But for years and years, such bad policies have been implemented across the world. So this is how people perceive politics. One has to correct it. Thank you very much. I would like to extend also thanks to the translators. Reciprocated. Thank you very much.